Where the opportunity is right now for organic is short form video, whether it's Instagram Reels, whether it's YouTube Shorts now are pretty big, or whether it's TikTok. And I see all these people who are building these giant followings, right? Like TikTok people, it's like they overnight they've got 1 million followers because they had a couple things go viral, which is great. But what happens next year when TikTok is no longer the thing?
I am so excited to welcome my very first business teacher to the podcast today. Ruth, welcome to the Teacher Biz podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited for this. So I think most of my listeners probably know who you are, but just for anyone that you're new to them, can you tell us the short version of who you are and about all of your businesses?
Yes. Is there a short version? So I'm Ruth Soukup, and I have many businesses, which I wouldn't recommend. So don't do as I say, not as I do. But I actually first started my first online business way back in 2010 as a stay-at-home mom of 2 little kids. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time, and I started a blog called Living While Spending Less, and everything sort of snowballed from there. At first I was just starting the blog as a hobby and then realized that there were people making money at it. So I'm like, I think I could do that too. And I then set out to figure out everything that I possibly could about the business side of blogging. And I set a goal to make enough money from my blog that my husband would be able to quit his job, which he thought was crazy. But it took me 3 years, and I finally was able to hit that goal, and he was able to retire in 2013. And then that actually started to unlock a lot of other stuff. At that time, then people started asking me, like, what are you doing? How did you do this? How did you retire your husband? And so I first wrote a book called How to Blog for Profit Without Selling Your Soul, which I thought would answer everybody's questions, but all it did was give people more questions. And then in 2014, I ended up starting my second business, which was Elite Blog Academy, and where I was actually teaching people how to create an online business step by step, which, as you know, Heather, because you were one of our star students. And then it kind of went from there. And then, I've started other things, and I tend to I get interested and passionate in certain things, and I tend to go down those rabbit holes. And so my latest thing that I started in 2022 is a new brand that was really kind of inspired by my own health and weight loss journey. And it's called Thinlicious, and I help women over 40 lose weight and get healthy. So that's a little about me in a nutshell.
Thank you. Yeah, so many things wrapped up in there. I love it. As Ruth mentioned there, I was a student in her Elite Blog Academy program. And that was my first business course that I ever took online, and was really the stepping stone to where I am now. So I love that. And I'm so excited to get to share Ruth with my listeners today. I would love to talk to you a little bit about business mindset and goals. You have this great philosophy on goals that I love. You say, big goals never happen all at once. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about that and where to start if they have a big goal?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm a huge, huge, huge believer in big goals and setting sort of stretch goals for yourself and kind of seeing the vision for where you want to go. I definitely would consider myself a visionary, big picture thinker. But the reality is that anything that you want to do and everything that you want to do in life is always going to happen by the steps that you take day by day, right? It always is the result. Every big goal, I say big goals never happen all at once. They are only the result of small steps taken consistently over time. And so I think sometimes we can get so caught up like, oh, I want this big thing, but then it feels so big and so overwhelming and so hard that we don't take any action, or we think that it's supposed to happen like really fast. And if it doesn't happen really fast, then we're doing it wrong, which is never the case, right? It's never the case. It's always the result of consistent. Keep going, keep doing it, even when nobody notices, even when it feels like, why am I doing this? Even when it feels like I don't even know if this is ever going to work, because it will. And I can look back on my entire journey as a business owner and see that over and over and over again, that pattern of, it was the little things that I was doing day by day by day by day by day that all added up. And that's the thing too, that nobody notices when you're doing that stuff. I had so many people. I remember when my first book came out in 2014, early 2014, well, my first traditionally published book was called Living While Spending Less. My actual first book was How to Blog for Profit, which I already mentioned. But this was my first book with a publisher. And I had been blogging since 2010 and doing all the things, doing all the things, doing all the things, doing all the things, and for those 3 years, nobody noticed anything, right? Nobody noticed any of it. And I was slowly growing my audience and growing my email list and doing the things, doing the things, doing the things. And then in 2013, I was able to actually, I kind of hit that tipping point finally. All of a sudden things started to take off. All of a sudden things started to work, and I was generating revenue, and my husband was able to quit his job. But then I published this book. And sometimes people don't notice you, right, until you do something big in the world. And so this book came out, and I hit the New York Times bestseller list. And that's a big deal, right? To hit the New York Times bestseller list. And so all of a sudden, all these people were like, where did you come from? Right? In reaching out to me and wanting to do interviews. And I remember I had this interview with this guy who had not been very nice to me. I'd met him at a conference the year prior to that. And he's like, hey, I saw that you made the New York Times list. Can you come on my podcast? I want to talk about your overnight success. That's what he wanted to talk about, my overnight success. I'm like, sorry, bud, not overnight success. This was 4 years in the making, right? 4 years of hard work that nobody saw, nobody knew about until you finally kind of hit that thing. And so that's the encouragement, right? That you think about, you got to be willing to put in the hard work when nobody gets it. You got to be willing to put in the hard work and take those steps when it doesn't feel like it totally makes sense, when you're not sure what you're doing, when it feels messy, when it feels icky, when it feels like, is this ever going to do anything? Because it will. You have to just keep going. So just keep taking those steps. So yes, I do say that a lot. Big goals never happen all at once. They're only the result of small steps taken consistently over time. It's kind of my trademark.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's so true, because the only way to be successful is to not give up when no one is paying attention to you, when you're not seeing the results that you want. And it's really hard when your business isn't making money yet to keep going and do all those things.
Yes.
It's a lot easier when the dollars are coming into you.
It's way easier. But I mean, sometimes, right? But then there's more money, more problems. People don't always realize that too. You think that you're going to make this magical point, but I promise you, every lesson that you're learning along the way is going to help you when you get to that point. And I think too, so often I look back at that time, right? And when I tell my story in 3 minutes. My husband was able to quit his job. And nobody, everybody's like, oh, that's so great. I want to do that too, right? I want to make enough money that I can quit my job or retire or do something else or care for my family or work for me. All these goals. And those are awesome goals. But what you don't see and you don't feel necessarily the impact of is how hard it was in those 3 years when nobody understood what I was doing. And my friends thought, I was blogging about coupons and how to use coupons, and I had friends that didn't even want to hang out with me because they thought it was so dorky that I was writing, making coupon videos and sharing it on the internet. And the lady at the bank would make fun of me because she thought I was, oh, how's the coupon business every time I'd go in there. And it was just I had to have this sense of, this is what I want. And this is what I'm going to go for. And I'm not going to stop before anybody else realized it, right? Before anybody else saw it, before anybody else was going to do it. Because when you look back in hindsight, you go, oh, that happened so fast. 3 years. Yeah, I'm willing to put in 3 years of hard work. The problem is, though, when you're in those 3 years, you don't know if it's going to be 3 years. You don't know if it's going to be 5 years. You don't know what the end of the story looks like. You just have to have faith that it's going to happen at some point if you keep going.
That is such solid advice. I love that so much. Just keep going and assume that you'll be successful at the end as long as you don't give up. So good.
That's it.
Yeah.
The only way to fail is to quit.
I love that. The only way to fail is to quit. Spot on. And so I know you talk a lot about time blocking. I am a big believer in chunking our days to get stuff done. And lately, you've been posting about blocking out full days of your work week to do your big projects. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it's helped you?
Oh yeah, and it's honestly it's something that I used to do a long time ago. I was in a program many years ago called Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan, and so it's a Dan Sullivan concept. And then I recently read Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan co-wrote a book together called 10x is easier than 2x. Such a good book, definitely a must read. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go back to focus days. Why haven't I been doing this? And so I did. And I am telling you that there is something magical about because what happens is your schedule starts to fill up with all these different things, right? Like you've got meetings and and as your business grows bigger, there's more meetings, there's more people, there's more things, there's more demands on your time. But now I'm so protective and I block out 3 full focus days every single week where my team doesn't message me, right? I'm not on Slack. I'm not going on to meetings. I'm not doing anything except going, what is it that is my biggest priority right now that I want to dedicate my entire day to? And it's amazing how much you can get done and how much deeper you can go when you're not constantly interrupted. And it's been really good. I love it. We joke because sometimes they actually do need to get in touch with me and they'll have to call my husband and he'll have to like physically walk in the room because I'm like, I'm not looking at anything that anybody's sending me. I'm just in my own zone. And when you can get into that zone, it's pretty powerful.
I love that. I think that's such a great way to do things. And my listeners often struggle with the time management piece of adding a business into their life. So I think that's a really great strategy to share with them. We've talked about 2 of your books already, but we haven't touched on this one yet. And whenever someone asks me for a book suggestion, a business book, my top choice is always Do It Scared, which is not even really a business book. It's about fear. But that book changed my life because I was stuck in such a cycle of perfectionism that was procrastination, and I didn't even know that. I had no idea that that's what I was doing. So I took Elite Blog Academy back in like 2016 and I kept rewriting my blog posts. I would like write them over and over and I had more than enough, but I wouldn't move on past that lesson because I felt
Yes.
like if I just did everything perfectly, then my business would be more successful.
Yes.
And Do It Scared changed that for me. I was on your book launch team. I was such a, Ruth super fan. I still am a Ruth super fan.
I love Ruth super fans.
Yes. I think back then, like my business wasn't making any money yet. So I was living vicariously a little bit too. But I took that fear archetype assessment
Yeah.
and it completely changed my life because I found
Mhm.
out that I was a perfectionist and that really
Yes.
I'd been procrastinating this whole time. And something in there shifted in me and I just decided to overcome that.
I
And
love that.
now I am a recovered perfectionist. I take imperfect action. I don't do anything perfectly anymore. It really was just like completely life-changing. And I
Yes.
think this perfectionism thing comes up a lot for my teachers who are getting into online business because we
Mhm.
want to be A students. We want to do all the things right. So
I
I
get
would
that.
love for you to speak to that and tell them why they shouldn't be those A students.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things that I want to unpack from that. First of all, I think that the power of the fear archetypes and understanding your fear archetype, and there's 7 of them, by the way. The procrastinator slash perfectionist is the most common one. But the power of that is actually in the identification, right? Is realizing that fear doesn't show up for all of us in the same way. And all of this book, Do It Scared, was another huge passion project of mine, a 2-year very expensive passion project. I did a huge research study. We surveyed over 4,000 people for this. I hired a whole team of researchers to help like analyze the data. It was a ridiculously self-indulgent project, but I'm so proud. I'm so proud of it too. And I think that what we discovered through all of this work was that fear shows up for each person a little bit uniquely, right? We all have these different fear archetypes. And so how your fear is showing up is basically the way that it will hold you back. And each of these fear archetypes is interesting because they each have positive qualities and negative qualities, right? Some of the things that make you great are the same things that are actually holding you back. And so what happens is when you can identify how fear is showing up in your life, like you did for yourself, and realizing, oh my gosh, this perfectionism. And there's a reason we don't call it the perfectionist archetype, because a lot of people take pride in perfectionism, right? They see it as like kind of a badge of honor. Yeah. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. Yep. I'm a perfectionist. But it actually is procrastination. And it actually is the thing that is preventing you from moving forward and doing all the things that you want to do. And so as soon as you can start to identify that, which is, sounds like that's exactly what happened with you, like see it, right? You shine the light on it and you go, oh my gosh, this is what's happening for me. And now that's when you actually have the power, because most of the time it's all subconscious. It's all happening beneath the surface. We don't really realize it. It's this sort of just we think that's just the way that we're wired. But as soon as you can go, oh, take a step back and actually see your behavior, that's when you have the opportunity to start changing it, which you have done phenomenally well, right? Like you went from being procrastinator and rewriting all those blog posts to just action, 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 because action is the antidote to fear. And it's amazing. Like it's amazing how that works and how it will unlock it for you. So yeah, I love talking about the fear archetypes.
I think that's so great. I think everyone should take that assessment and just realize for themselves where they're stuck, because it radically changed my life. I love
You can take it for free. You can take the free assessment. Just go to doitscared.com and take it.
Everyone should go there now and do that. Mm-hmm. Powerful stuff. And I love that. Ruth just said, action is the antidote to fear. So I want to highlight that for everyone. Take that action, take that beautiful, imperfect action, because that's where all the good stuff in our life comes from.
So true. It's so, so true.
I'll shift into business talk a little bit here. So you've been talking lately about changes coming in the online business world. And I would love for you to share some predictions for this year in 2024 and maybe some areas that are worth leaning into.
Yeah, predictions for 2024. Well, I really do feel like, AI has changed the landscape of online world and content creation a lot just over the past year, right? Like it's been around for a few years, but ChatGPT exploded about a year ago, and now everything's AI. Everybody's talking about AI. And that I think actually brings up a lot of opportunities for online business owners, especially content creators, because the problem with AI is that it's AI, right? It's artificial and it's not human. And so the opportunity that still is available, because I think more than content, what people are searching for is connection and is authenticity. And so there's going to be more and more and more and more content out there. And I honestly, I think that as content creators, you can use AI really effectively to help make things faster and easier. And there's so many different ways to utilize that technology. It's a little scary sometimes, the technology, but at the same time, AI will never be able to recreate genuine connection and authenticity. And so that's where, as content creators, you have an opportunity to lean in and to truly connect and to feel people's pains, right? Robots can't feel people's pain. They can pretend to, but they don't actually. And there's never going to be a way to duplicate that in the way that humans can. And that human connection, I think in a world of technology is even there's more desperation for it, right? There's people want to feel connected to you. They want to feel connected to the content. They want to feel like you get them. And so if you can truly lean into that as in your online business in a very real and authentic way, I think there's huge opportunities there.
I love that. Yes. I've been saying a lot this year that caring about your customer is something that AI can never replicate, and it really makes you stand apart from the crowd. So I think that's so spot on. And I don't think we have to be afraid of AI either, because they can't do that for us. So I love that you pointed that out.
Use the technology, but don't be afraid of it, but also realize that what you have that AI is not. So that's really the hugest thing, is to go, okay, this is what I can do better than a robot can do. And be a human is what you can do better than what a robot can do.
That is really sound advice. I know one thing you're doing more of this year is showing up on social. I love seeing what you're
Mhm.
doing there. I've been following you on Instagram pretty closely because I am also trying to post more on Instagram this year. It's been something I've been not so great about consistently doing in the past, but it's been fun. And I always comment on your posts when they pop up in my feed. So can you share with us what you're working on over there?
Yeah. So this has been actually a really interesting experiment for me. And something that I think I've identified as like even just what I was talking about is realizing how important the human element is to my business. And I don't think it's something that I've always given or for the past few years have given enough weight to. And you start like, and when I think about when I started my business, right? I was just a stay-at-home mom of two little girls. I would share my life, like a very mommy blogger, but people connected to that and they liked it. And that was why that's why people like influencers today, right? Mommy bloggers were sort of the precursor to what today's influencers are. And I think there was that piece of it that I got so into the business mode of like, I just got to create my funnels. I just got to create my products. I just got to do the things. And people aren't really that interested in me. They're interested in the solution. But I've realized more and more that that's not actually true, is that connection piece is very important. And so I've sort of intentionally stepping out of being very much in front of my business, right? And so involved in like being the face of my business for the last few years, where I've sort of had these different teams and I do a lot behind the scenes, but I'm actually a very private person and I like my life. And you know what I mean? I don't have any aspirations to be a celebrity or to be like this known person. Like even the few times that this has happened to me where I've gone somewhere and somebody has like seen me and recognized me, right? And like, oh my gosh, you're Ruth. It's the most awkward, like cringy thing in the world. And thank goodness my husband is amazing and so like easy with everybody. And he'll always be like, oh, you want me to take a picture? Like he just knows how to handle it because I'm like, hi. Right. It's so awkward. But the like so it's not like it is so not an ego driven thing, but I am very business driven, right? And I want my business to succeed, and I realize that what I do really well is actually being relatable and having that connection. And so I from a business standpoint, and we've had a lot of conversations with our team, I realize that I really do need to do a better job of being out front and having that connection and just being more present and authentic in a way that people can connect to on an ongoing basis. And so I made the decision, like I was like, well, which platform should I go into? There's so many different things that you can choose, but I do really believe that the best way of gaining traction anywhere is to focus in one place. And so I decided I like Instagram. I think of all the different platforms. So I decided to lean into Instagram and then made the commitment, right? I had to like kind of deal with my own resistance there, but made the commitment. I am going to show up every single day. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be posting every single day. I'm going to share my life. And, behind the scenes, I had to do a lot of thinking about, okay, what does this look like? I have 3 different businesses. Which one am I talking about? Like, I think that was a little bit of a struggle for me too, is to know what is me on social media look like versus one of my brands. And so I've since the beginning of the year, I've really, really focused on that. And it has been so much fun. Can I just even tell you, like, I have had more fun with it than I probably should, right? Like it becomes kind of a rabbit hole when you're spending a lot of time on social, because I've really spent time like deep diving into the platform, because I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, right? Like I don't want to do it half-assed. I'm going to do it well, and I'm going to understand this, and I'm going to see what other people are doing, and I'm going to figure out how to make it my own, and I'm going to figure out how to make it feel like me. And I've been doing that and trying lots of different things, like every day. I post something every day. So now, like this week, I'm trying to post twice a day, but we'll see how that's a little exhausting. But my whole goal is not like, oh, I think this is going to be the thing, right? Going back to the perfectionist thing, we can get so caught up in like, oh, how do I make it perfect? Instead, I'm like, every day is an experiment. Like, what do I throw out there? What am I going to try? What am I going to say? How does this land? How does this land? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And I don't get so attached to each specific thing. Instead, I just worry about like, how can I make, like, what do people need to hear about? Like, what is on my mind? And how can I share with myself authentically, not in a way that feels too overly exposed or like I'm like verbal diarrhea, right? Like you're sharing everything. Sorry, my dogs are in the background. Um, but I think that it's been really a fun experiment to see how, it's amazing also the results in such a short amount of time. Cause now it's been at the time of this recording. It's been about 6 weeks that I've been like very consistently. I mean, we have seen a huge influx in our email list. We have seen like organic growth that we've never seen before. We have seen a huge influx in sales that we haven't seen before, right? Like an all organic traffic. And it makes like really looking at the results just makes us go, holy crap, we should have done this a lot earlier, really focused on this a lot earlier. Cause I've been so focused on just like, yeah, just use Facebook ads, right? Like you just paid advertising is the way to go. But I also think, I mean, if we're talking about trends for 2024, advertising is tough. Facebook made a lot of changes. Well, not intentionally, but when Apple kind of pulled the rug out from underneath Facebook, give you a little history of Facebook advertising. When was that? Like 2 years ago, where they changed all their privacy settings on iOS. It really made advertising a lot harder. And then on top of that, there's a lot more competition within Facebook advertising. So unless you are doing really well organically, it's hard to get traction as a small business, I think, from a paid perspective. We still run paid ads, but we're seeing way better results from our paid ads because of what we're doing organically. And that's pretty cool to see as well.
Yeah, I can tell that you're having fun with it. I love it. I mean, like seeing you dance on Instagram makes me feel better about dancing.
Can't dance. I'm 6'2". I've never been able to dance. I have one move. It's called tiny fist. It's my signature move. And I'm like, you know what? That's me. Like my friends know that when we go out, it's the joke. Like, oh, we got the tiny fist out tonight. And so I'm like, I might as well just be authentically me. And because sometimes it's like, the whole thing with Instagram, you got to stop the scroll. And somehow it's like those goofy things are the things that get people to stop and then actually read the content, right? Like there might be something that's really valuable in the content, but it's me dancing with tiny fists like a dum-dum with some trending audio. And that's the thing that gets people to stop. Well, okay, I can do that. Like I can still make it feel like me. And I think I struggled with that for a long time of really like, cause I'd see all these reels and I'd be like, this is so dumb. I'm not going to do that though. Like that, how does that add value for people? Like the only thing I could think to do was just talk to the camera.
Mhm.
And the reality is that you can do that. And sometimes I do, but that's not necessarily what's going to get people to stop. So now I have a better understanding of that. These other types of videos are the thing that will help boost your engagement so that when you do something that is like really like people stop and listen, it actually gets shown. And now that I understand that a little bit more, I've embraced it.
I'm making that exact same shift. It was so easy to just hold up my phone and talk about something I know about. And I could do that and batch like, 60 or 30 minutes or something. And so I leaned into that for a really long time. And it's just recently too, for me, that I'm trying these new things.
All these other things.
And
Yeah.
you're
The little
setting a good
3-second
example.
videos, the little
Yeah.
3-second, I know. And then the B-roll, right? It's all about the B-roll. And so I'm like, got my little tripod. I walk around and I'm like, okay, I'm going to video myself doing something dumb. It's because, and then it looks good on camera. Hopefully people are like, does she really like just film herself doing all this random stuff? Yes, I do. It's so dumb.
And so do so many of us. So it's okay. And then when it comes to organic ways to find people, you are Ruth. I have to ask you, what does blogging look like these days? You've been saying for
Yeah.
years that blogging is not dead, but I think it's probably adapted a little bit. So what's it looking like in
Yeah.
2024?
Well, blogging on an actual blog, I think is like people can think, I guess, consider that blogging. I consider blogging any form of content you're putting out there, right? I'm blogging every day on Instagram, just in short form, um, in a short form of that, right? Like it's just a little snippet of it. Or I'm blogging when I'm recording a podcast, which I love doing long form content in podcast form, right? Where I can go deep and really like dive into a topic and be meaty. Like to me, I love that more than even Instagram, although I am having a lot of fun with Instagram, because Instagram, there's only so much you can say. First of all, you have a word limit and a time limit on your thing. And I mean, as you can tell from this thing, I got lots of words to say. So there's I love having both, right? I love doing a podcast where I can do long form. I think that blogging on an actual blog is probably way less effective and popular than it has been in the past. However, I think that if you're creating content in another place, like a podcast or even in your newsletter or doing other things, that it's not a bad idea to also put that on your blog and optimize it for SEO, because there are opportunities there. We have, that's what we do for Thinlicious, for instance, which is the brand that I'm most involved in content creation with for right now, is I record one very meaty podcast episode every week for our podcast. And then we take that script and we usually shorten it just a little bit. It's most of the same content, but it's a little bit, and then we clean it up a little bit, because the way that I script out my podcast episodes is exactly how I talk, right? It's very casual. And so for blog posts, you have to make it feel a little like less casual. And so we turn that into a blog post and we put that on the blog, and then we optimize that for SEO. So it's not creating two pieces of content. It's one piece of content that takes a little bit of extra time, but that's not really our main focus. The main focus is growing the podcast. I think there are really great opportunities for long form if you're doing YouTube videos, right? If doing really high quality, because there's just opportunities to get found on that platform that you're not going to find on your blog, that are not going to be used great on your blog. So you can utilize that platform. But then what you want to do, no matter where you're creating content, is you always want to be sending people to your email list, right? Like that is always number one on my mind, even on the stuff that I'm posting on Instagram. Almost every single post that I do has some sort of call to action to get people onto my email list. And one of the things I'm doing on Instagram is, I'm a mom. I cook. I love food and I love to cook, and my food is really good. I'm a really good cook. And so it's easy for me as I'm cooking to just like take little clips of my things and edit those together in a video. And there you go. I have content. And so then one extra step I've been taking for that is to, I have a Canva template. I just write out the recipe, whatever I did. I don't even bother about like calculating the calories or the stuff. I'm like, no, these are casual recipes. So I just stick them on a PDF. I send that to my assistant, and she sets up a ManyChat for that to deliver it. And then I have a keyword. So I don't give the recipe in the thing, but they have to, if they want the thing. And what happens, ManyChat is really cool on Instagram. So it will deliver that PDF right away. And I don't make people opt in for it, right? It just sends them the PDF for those recipes. But then when I do next is, once they get the recipe, it says, hey, just so you know, I send all my recipes out in my email newsletter every week. If you want to get those, then you can sign up. And I've just been getting tons of people signing up to my personal newsletter just because of that one thing, right? Like, so you can make it high value, you can make it feel really organic and authentic. But there's always something where you're wanting to get people onto your email list, because that's the thing that you control. So because Instagram could go away tomorrow, right? The algorithm could change again, and all this stuff that I've been doing could change. Same thing with any other platform. But if you're actually using those tools to get people to your thing, then you have longevity and control over it. And then you can decide what the next platform is that you want to master.
I am so glad you brought that up. I am so grateful to have learned that from you years ago, and to always have in my mind that the point of everything is building your list. The point of any content that you put out there is building your email list.
Yes.
On my kindergarten ready list, I'm over 150,000 subscribers now.
Amazing.
But it's all because I knew that. Before I even I was scrapping together my old blog back in the day. I knew that email was so important. I learned that from Ruth, and it really is so true. It is so true. Head and shoulders above everything else.
And I look at, and I'm like an old lady of the internet at this point, because I've been doing this for so long, and I've watched so many platforms rise and fall over the last 14 or 15 years. And I see, now like where the opportunity is right now for organic is short form video, whether it's Instagram Reels, whether it's YouTube Shorts now are pretty big, or whether it's TikTok. And I see all these people who are building these giant followings, right? Like TikTok people, it's like they overnight they've got 1 million followers because they had a couple things go viral, which is great. But what happens next year when TikTok is no longer the thing, right? Or it gets shut down because it's owned by the Chinese government and everybody's worried about it, right? Or whatever. There's all these things. You never want to build your entire platform, because I've watched that so many times, right? In the back in the day, it was, oh, everybody just needs a Facebook page, right? When Facebook was just getting started, they were encouraging all businesses, just have a Facebook page. You don't even need anything else. You don't need a website. You don't need anything else. Just send everybody to your Facebook page. So people grew these giant, and at the time it was great, right? Like everything you'd post was just viral and it was great. And then one day they turned off the spigot, and suddenly Facebook page engagement was 100% dead, and people's businesses went away overnight because they'd had nothing else to lean on. And so that really is the most important thing. Like, use the tools and use the opportunities. So if you want to blog, do vlogs on YouTube or do a podcast. Use the opportunities that are available to promote on those channels, because it is easier to gain traction and get visibility, but then still be sending everybody to your email list, because then you can always move on to the next thing.
That Facebook story, that was before my time, before my business, but I always had that in the back of my mind, like everything else can go away, get them on my list. And I am so grateful for that. I teach my students to build product-focused businesses. And can you tell us a little bit about the power of having a product in your business?
Yes. I mean, honestly, there's no other way to do a business than to have products. There's a lot of people talking about affiliate stuff or sponsorships or that kind of stuff. And there are ways to have opportunities, right? That might feel easier to be an affiliate for somebody else's product. But again, it like comes back to control, right? Being able to have the control over your own thing, and the full profit, especially if you're doing digital products, right? The opportunities for digital products and the profit margin that's available for having your own digital products is pretty high. And I would go even one step further now and say that it's not even just about having a product that you have to sell one time. And this is something that we're really, really hammering home in our Powerhouse program, is you have to have a continuity product, something that is a subscription. So, if you're creating printables or PDFs or resources or tools or something for teachers or students or whatever it is, create it as once a month you get this thing and it becomes a subscription product. So then you get to sell it one time and continue to get that revenue that's predictable, and that you can make projections and that kind of thing, because that's what starts to build the compounding revenue in your business. So very, very focused on continuity products.
I love that. I'm excited to learn more about continuity products from you. I have a membership for my kindergarten ready business. Part of this is just like fun for me, bragging to Ruth about my numbers and how I've grown in my business. I have Kindergarten Ready Club.
Yes.
And I have 800 members signed up to pay me every single month for
amazing.
my little activities that I send to them.
That's
and
amazing.
It's brought this like sustainability and comfort in my business, that it's not just going to disappear tomorrow, and I will be able to cover all my bills no matter what happens, because I have that membership. So,
and not only that, it makes your business more valuable, like from an exit perspective too. So if you decide, right, like you want to focus on helping other business owners and you want to sell that piece of it, and so that you're not worried about it anymore, now you can say, I have this many members that generates this much revenue. That's this like it skyrockets the value of your business.
That is a really good point. I don't often think about that, but it exists, and it's a possibility, especially as I work to balance two businesses here. I have a little bit of that bug that you were talking about, where I have to follow the idea.
I can relate to that.
This has been such a great conversation, Ruth. Before we end here, tell us what you're working on now and what you're excited about.
Yeah. Oh, so many things. So, well, in Elite Blog Academy, I'm excited about our Powerhouse program that we just launched this year, where we're still in beta. And that is, I'm so excited to be doing something totally new for Elite Blog Academy. We sunsetted all of our older programs, and not that they weren't good programs, but I really feel like there's something like in today's market in 2024 that there's just some different pieces. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to go and redo old stuff. I actually want to create it from new. I want to create it in real time. I want to focus on what's working right now in the online space. And so that's very much what that program is all about. And it's been so much fun to be doing. And then over at Thinlicious, it's kind of like Thinlicious is like my non-business related brand that I get to do all the stuff and then teach people how to do it in Powerhouse. So it's like, which you probably feel the same way about your business. But in Thinlicious, we are working on, we have a really great program that's called the Thin Adapted System, TAS. It's a health and weight loss program, really specifically geared towards women over 40. And have such, we've had amazing results. We have like a 92% success rate in our program, which is unheard of for a health and weight loss program. But we do not have like a lower level continuity program. So what we are launching for Thinlicious is a app that we have known since day one when we launched the Thinlicious brand that we needed to have an app, because what we do right now for the people who are in our program is we recommend that they use someone else's app to track their macros and track their stuff, but it's not perfectly aligned to our program. So there's some problems with it. One thing that we don't focus on is calories at all. And because it's all about hormones and hormonal balance. And so we wanted to have our own app. So we've been working on developing that, and we'll be launching it on March 18th, I think, is the day that we're actually going to be launching it to the public. And we're just really, really excited about that. And it's going to be amazing because we have a certified coach program in there. And so people will have access to coaches right in the app and challenges. And it's a really cool piece of software, which has taken a lot of work behind the scenes to get it all working. But I'm so excited at the convenience that it's going to offer for people, because the reality is that, right, like life is busy, and who has time to like focus on all these different things and when you're wanting to get healthy. So just making things feel easier and more convenient, I'm really excited about. So yeah, those are kind of the big things I've been working on, plus Instagram.
So many things, so many things. Now that all of my listeners have fallen in love with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, find me on Instagram, especially like if you are interested in growing your platform, because I am really focused on being strategic there too. So it's like I always think the best way to learn is to find somebody who's doing things that are working and then start to like emulate them. But you can connect with me there too. I'm fun. And so my Instagram is at Ruth Soukup. And then if you are interested in any of my brands, probably the best way to find me is either at Elite Blog Academy or thinlicious.com.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I think my listeners got so much out of this conversation. I'm so excited to have had you here. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.